Hi, how you doing? This is Steve Childers, and I'm going to talk about spindle turning. Just a basic course on spindle turning. Spindle turning is the act of turning a piece of wood that's square into an object that's round, such as table legs or chair parts, just for an example. If you take a look at these pieces of wood carefully, you'll see that most spindle work is either a bead or a cove, or a combination of the two. This one is entirely beads. This one has just a couple coves on it. And these are all out of antique chairs. So that's how we're going to start out. We're going to do some beads and some coves. We're going to combine them. We'll do a few tapers and a couple other little things. All right, I just want to quickly cover the different parts of the lathe so that we're all talking the same language. This is the headstock. That's where the motor lives, down at this end. On this model, it's actually down in here, but inside here are some belts that you can change the speed. Over here is the tailstock. The tailstock moves back and forth, and it also screws in and out. On the tailstock is the live center. If you screw it back all the way, the live center will pop right out of there, and it's called a live center because it's got a bearing in it. On the headstock is the drive center, and there are quite a number of different drive centers. This one here has multi-teeth. A lot of people think that's safer, which it probably is. There are a couple other drive centers. This is kind of old school drive center, but I like it. This one has a center piece that is spring loaded and moves in and out. Personally, I don't care for these, but a lot of people swear by them, so it's up to you. All right, in the center, in between the drive center and the live center, is the tool rest. This part here is referred to as the banjo, and this is the tool rest. They're interchangeable. You can get wider ones, narrower ones, and it goes up and down. All right, to prepare your piece of wood to put it in the lathe, we need to find out where the center is on each end of it. So they have this nice little center finder. It fits right on the corners, and you can draw a little line on there. We'll do that on both ends. And then we need to put a little dimple right there where that intersection is. Not too deep. And now we can mount this in the lathe. This should be pretty tight. And don't forget to lock it down after you tighten it. All right, your tool rest position should be set up so that it's about 1/8 of an inch, or at the most 1/4 of an inch away from the work. And the height should be just a little bit below the center line. If you set this up so that two of these corners are opposite each other, and set this so that it's just a little bit below that, that'll be good. Before you turn the lathe on, always spin your work and make sure it's not going to hit the tool rest. If you've never turned on a spindle before, I recommend a lathe speed of about 1,000 RPM. If you have a lathe like this that shows you exactly what the RPM is, then anywhere close to 1,000 RPM is going to be great. After you get a little bit more experience, you might want to crank that up a little bit, but I wouldn't go too much faster. All right, tool position and your hand position. If you're right-handed, you need to grip the cutting end of your tool in your left hand with your index finger underneath it and your thumb on top of it. And then your finger should ride back and forth along the tool rest like this. Make sure that your tool is touching the tool rest. I've seen people try to start with the tool up off the tool rest like that. They usually only do that once. The other end of the handle should have your right hand on it so that you can adjust the angle of your tool. All right, when you start to actually do some cutting, you need to remember the turning ABCs. A for anchor, you're going to anchor your tool to the tool rest. B stands for bevel. This is the bevel, and you're going to let that part touch the wood, but it's not going to be cutting yet. And C stands for cut. You're going to raise your right hand up a little bit. That's going to bring the cutting edge down, and it's going to start cutting. As soon as it starts cutting, that's the correct angle that you want this tool at. Now you can hold the tool perpendicular to the spinning work that you're turning, or it actually works much better if you push it a little bit like this. And you can tell if it's round without turning the lathe off just by laying your tool on the work like that. If it bounces, it's not quite round yet. That should have just a little bit of a flat left on it. All right, it's got just a little bit of a flat left on it. You could tell that from just a little bit of a noise it made. All right, in order to turn this part here, we're going to have to move the tool rest. Don't do that when the lathe's running. Stop the lathe for a minute, move the tool rest down where you need it, lock it down, make sure it's not touching the tool rest, and you're ready to finish making this round. We're going to leave the left-hand end down here square for now. Need to tighten up just a little bit. All right, I just briefly want to mention what kind of wood this is and why I like using this wood. This is poplar. I buy these pieces here for my class at Lowe's. Poplar, for anything that's going to be painted, poplar's like the ideal wood. You can't get anything any better. It's not too hard, it's not too soft. It takes paint very well, it doesn't stain, and it's cheap. That's the most important thing. All right, this is just a little sample of my tools, and if you're starting out wood turning, you're going to do some spindle work, I highly recommend that you do not go out and spend a whole lot of money on tools right away. Just get yourself a basic set of tools anywhere, even if you get them at Harbor Freight, and learn to use those. And it won't take you long to figure out what other tools you will need. But it'll save you money because you won't go out and spend a lot of money on tools that you're not going to need. Now, I have a lot of basic tools. These are just, I don't even know where they came from. I have tools that I've had all my life. This is actually a shopsmith tool. This is a craftsman tool. This is actually one of my favorite tools here, this little 1/2-inch skew. A lot of these tools are just cheap tools, but they work very well for this kind of stuff. I have some antique tools that I've put my own handle on. I love this one. And I've got a few nice woodcraft tools. But the point is, don't go out and get the expensive tools right away. Get yourself just a nice basic set of tools, learn how to sharpen them, learn how to use them, and then you will figure out yourself what other tools you're going to need. We roughed this out with a roughing gouge. If you don't have a roughing gouge, an old spindle gouge from a basic set of tools will do the job nearly just as well. And I'll do a quick demonstration of that. This is just the spindle gouge from, I'm not even sure where I got it, but I've got it sharpened pretty well, and I think you'll see that it'll turn this just almost as well as that roughing gouge will. ABCs. Can't really tell the difference. All right, we're going to do a few coves, and I'll show you a couple different ways to do it. We're going to start out with just a round nose. All right, we're going to define the area that we're going to make a cove in. You really need a tool that's narrower than your cove is going to be. So this cove here is probably 5/8 of an inch wide, and I've got a 1/2-inch round nose. If I was going to make a cove a lot smaller, I'd use a smaller round nose. I've reground, this is just a woodworking tool that I've reground into a lathe tool. Remember that the wood fibers are running back and forth through here horizontally, and we want to always be cutting with the wood fibers. We're going to try to always be cutting downhill. So I'm going from the left down to the middle, and then I'm going from the right down to the middle. It's pretty smooth. All right, we're going to do the same thing, except we're going to make a smaller groove with a smaller tool. Same process. We're going to cut from the left down to the center. We're going to cut from the right down to the center. Now, even though this is a scraping tool, I'm still writing the bevel. When you're cutting, you should be looking at the profile right here. When you're cutting, you should be actually looking at the profile right here. you can't really see what the shape is if you're looking down here. You can look down here when you're positioning the tool, but as soon as you start to cut, you need to glance up here and see what your profile looks like. And your profile should be a nice, smooth curve. All right, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to make some more coves, but this time we're going to use a small spindle gouge. I've got several of them. This one is just from a cheap set of tools. Actually, this is a shopsmith tool, but this one is a Robert Sorby tool. Let me take a second and give you some advice on buying these Robert Sorby tools. All right, just a quick tip if you're out buying some tools. This tool is not much more expensive than this tool is. But this tool has a solid shaft here, and this one has a tang that sticks into the wood. You can bend this one without a whole lot of effort, and you cannot bend this one. So for the small amount that this one is more expensive than this one, I highly recommend that you get the more expensive one. I don't always recommend you get the more expensive one, but in this case, definitely do it. All right, we're going to do the same thing, except this time we're going to use different tools. This is a spindle gouge, nicely sharpened. We're going to define the area that we're going to make the cove. We're going to present the tool vertically, and we're going to rock it. Same thing, we're going to move from the edge down to the center, then we're going to come over here and do the same thing on the other side. So a little bit of a catch there. All right, we'll do another one, just like that. We're going to start here on the edge. As you go in, you're going to have to lower the handle down. Okay, we're going to do another one, a smaller one. Remember to go downhill with the cut and not run against the grain on the other side. See the profile, nice and smooth. All right, we're going to do a couple different kind of beads. These are beads with a flat in between them, and these are interconnected beads. We'll try both of them. All right, we're going to do a couple beads with a flat in between them, and we're going to use a cut-off tool to do that. So I'm going to define where the bead is going to be and where the flat is going to be. Question, how far down do I want to go? How deep should this be? It should be about half the width of the bead. If this is the width of the bead, then this is half the width, and that's about how deep this should be to give you a nice looking bead. You don't have to measure that, just eyeball it. Getting a little chatter. Alright, I'm going to show you a couple different ways to make these beads. If you're doing, if you're copying something and you don't want to mess it up, you want to make sure it's right the first time, then here's one way to do it. You can use a skew. This is a 1/2 inch skew. And you're going to knock the corners off here. You're going to present the skew to the wood at a 45-degree angle. And we're just going to scrape those corners off. So we want this distance right here to be about the same as this distance right here. And then all you're going to do is take this and round over those corners. Sandpaper's your friend, as long as you're not using the sandpaper as a crutch. We're done. All right, another way to do it with your skew is to roll these corners. Keep your skew perpendicular to your work. As soon as you start moving it like this, you're going to get a catch. You might get one anyway. Notice my hand position is different now. I'm holding the tool down a little bit. I've got a light touch on it, and I'm using just the heel of the tool, not the toe. All right, that's two ways to do it. All right, here's the third way to do it. I'm going to use the spindle gouge, and we're going to roll that corner with it. All right, we're going to do another one. Notice that even though I'm using this parting tool, I'm still moving it up and down. The further in I go, the further down the tip of it has to go. Now we're going to roll this one the same way we did this one. When we get down here on the edge, we've got the tool almost straight vertically. All right, now we're going to make a few of these interconnected beads a little bit different way. You don't need to you don't need to measure these, just give yourself some limits. We're going to present this skew vertically and just push it in a little bit. This will just get us started. All right, I've got to lower that tool rest down just a little bit. Now we're going to move the handle over just a little bit, and we're going to tip it over just a little bit. Just nibble away, don't try to take all that material off at once. Then move over this way and do it on the other side. Remember, the tool handle is moved and the tool is tipped just a little bit. Catches happen. I always say, if you don't get a catch once in a while, you're not really trying. And I don't mean trying to get a catch, I mean you're not really trying to do really good work. Now we're going to just roll these beads over. I'll do it from the left side. I should be using a smaller skew, but we'll try with this big one first. Just cutting with the heel of the tool right there. Now we'll do it with this smaller one. The reason we're using a skew is because there isn't any other tool that's going to reach down here in the bottom of this area here. And when you're cleaning this part up right here, you can use the heel or the toe. I actually prefer the toe like this. Notice though that I'm moving the tool a little bit to the left and I'm tipping it just a little bit so that I can ride this bevel right here. All right, now we're going to make a couple pommels. A pommel is the area that connects the square part of a spindle to the round part. Sometimes, especially if you're making stairway spindles, the bottom part and the top part are going to be square and the middle part is going to have some kind of design on it that's round. And the area that connects the two is this pommel. And it's not nearly as hard as it looks. It just takes a little bit of practice. So we're going to take this piece of wood first and we're going to make the center part of it round. This is not going to look like any stairway spindle you ever saw because we're going to do it in a couple sections so I can do several pommels. All right, we're going to define the area that we're going to make the pommel in. This line is going to represent the high point, and the second line is going to represent the low point. And I'll make a second one over here just so I can see it a little bit better. And we'll do a couple more over here, just so we have two of these to do. With a pommel, you need a skew. It can be a straight one or this one's slightly curved. All right, I'm just going to use this parting tool to flatten this area right here. And then we'll take our parting tool and we'll nibble away at this. This tool is held the same way we did when we were making those beads. Put it in straight, move it over just a little bit to the left, and tip it over a little bit to the left. Don't tip it too much. And then just push it straight in. Once you start pushing in, don't hesitate. That's a pommel. All right, now we'll just do another one over here. Same procedure. ABCs, anchor, bevel, cut. That's a pommel. Now, occasionally you'll get some crazy architect that thinks that this pommel ought to be straight down. It's the same procedure, it's just a little trickier. We'll turn this one into that. All right, this time, instead of moving the tool to the left, we're going to move it to the right just a little bit, and we're going to turn it down here so that the cutting edge and this face is in line with that pencil mark. We're going to nibble away. We don't want to try to take it all off at once. And we'll clean it up down here a little bit. And that should be pretty close to vertical. We've made some beads, we've made some coves. If you combine a bead and a cove, it creates what they call an OG. That's spelled O-G-E-E. And here's one right here. Here we have a half of a cove, right to about that point, and then a half of a bead. And that's what they call an OG. And we'll do another one on the other side. One other tool that I forgot to mention is a caliper. If you want to duplicate diameters, or if you're trying to copy one piece and make another one just exactly like it, you're going to want to duplicate the exact diameters. So you're going to need at least one of these calipers. It doesn't have to be this big. They make them quite small. But here's how it works. And don't worry about it. I know it's spinning. There's not much danger in that. We just want to duplicate that size right there. So we're going to cut this part here. So we can make that area right there. There we go. All right, I used the caliper to make sure this diameter was the same as this one, and then I widened it just to try to copy this size to this size. Now we're going to use a spindle gouge to copy this cove over here. This is a right-hand cove, that's going to be a left-hand cove. And I'm going to work my way over to it. Catches happen sometimes. Right, there we have two OGs, the left one and the right one. All right, this has just been an introduction to spindle turning. We have created some coves, different sizes. We've used different tools to do it with. We've made some beads, different sizes, different tools. And we've combined a cove and a bead to create an OG. In a later class sometime, we might make some, actually make some spindles and try to copy one that's already been created.